Urgent, Anthony Edwards makes a strong statement about the Lakers and their players. Stay until the end to find out everything, but first leave your like and subscribe to the channel. The arena was shaking. The roars of thousands echoed off the walls of the Target Center in Minneapolis. It was Game 5 of the Western Conference first round. The Minnesota Timberwolves were hosting the Los Angeles Lakers in a high-stakes showdown. But this wasn't just another playoff game for Anthony Edwards. This was personal. All week long, analysts had predicted a Lakers win in 5 games. Among them, loudest of all, was Shannon Sharpe, LeBron's biggest fan in the media, proclaiming boldly, "Lakers in 5." Those 3 words echoed in Edwards' mind like a dare, a challenge hurled from the national stage directly at him. Anthony, or Ant as teammates called him, wasn't interested in giving interviews or responding with words. He chose a different kind of response: domination. From the moment he stepped on the floor, Edwards had fire in his eyes. The crowd felt it. His teammates saw it. Even the Lakers, especially LeBron James and Luka Doncic, sensed it. This was not going to be easy. The ball tipped. Edwards sprinted into the first play with the aggression of someone on a mission. In the opening minute, he stole a lazy pass from Luka, raced down the court, and slammed it home with an intensity that sent a ripple through the stands. And then he turned to the cameras and said it, "Lakers in 5, right?" The crowd erupted. Social media exploded. Anthony Edwards had officially entered the arena, not just physically but as a force to be reckoned with. LeBron, standing at midcourt, cracked a smile. He'd been here before. He'd heard challengers talk. But Edwards wasn't just talk. He backed it up with relentless energy on both ends of the floor. All game long, Ant hunted mismatches. He didn't shy away from LeBron or Luka. In fact, he looked for them. He wanted the isolation, the spotlight, the moment. Late in the second quarter, Luka tried to isolate against Edwards. But Ant didn't flinch. As Luka backed him down, Edwards swiped low, stole the ball again, and hit a transition 3 seconds later. Then came the stare down, not of disrespect but of defiance. "Doncic is a generational talent," Edwards would say later. "But I'm not afraid of anybody. Not him. Not Bron. I look forward to those battles." As halftime arrived, the Timberwolves led by double digits. Edwards had already racked up 20 points, 5 rebounds, 3 steals, and countless highlights. But the real show was in the way he carried himself. Where other young stars might fold under the weight of facing legends like LeBron and Luka in a playoff series, Anthony Edwards thrived in it. He grew taller in their shadows. He demanded the light. And on that night, the spotlight obeyed. In the locker room at halftime, he turned to his teammates with a fire that hadn't dimmed since tip-off. "Don't let them breathe," he said. "This is our house. They think this is LeBron's league? Luka's time? Nah, not tonight. Tonight it's ours." Coach Chris Finch simply nodded. There was nothing more to say. The second half would only reinforce what the first had made clear. Anthony Edwards had arrived. Not as a future star. Not as potential. But as a man ready to take what was his, against anyone. Even LeBron. Even Luka. The locker room air was thick with adrenaline and sweat. While trainers rapped ankles and coaches scribbled notes on clipboards, Anthony Edwards sat quietly, a towel draped over his shoulders. But his eyes never stopped moving. He scanned the room like a general surveying the battlefield. This wasn't cockiness, it was clarity. He knew exactly what he wanted: the win, the respect, and most of all, the throne. Across the hallway, LeBron James was doing the same thing. For 20 years, LeBron had owned nights like this. His legacy was carved into playoff hardwood, etched in buzzer beaters and championship banners. He wasn't just a player, he was the standard. And Luka Doncic, his new partner in purple and gold, had quickly risen as one of the brightest stars of the post-LeBron era. The Lakers had assembled what they believed was an unstoppable force. But Anthony didn't buy into legacies. Not in that moment. Not on that court. He'd grown up watching LeBron dominate. Posters on the wall, sneakers on his feet. LeBron was a symbol of greatness for Edwards as a kid. Luka, meanwhile, represented the new generation's genius, court vision, impossible footwork, and impossible stat lines. But none of that mattered once the whistle blew. As the third quarter began, LeBron tried to slow the pace. He brought the ball up the court methodically, controlling the tempo like a master composer. Luka ran screens, working the angles, trying to bait the Wolves' defense into traps. The Lakers' game was mature, calculated, surgical. But Anthony? He brought chaos. He darted into passing lanes like a blur. He exploded off screens with nuclear energy. Every time the Lakers made a run, Edwards answered with something louder. A three from deep. A thunderous dunk. A rejection at the rim that sent the ball into the stands and the crowd into hysteria. Midway through the third, Edwards took a baseline drive, spun past Reeves, rose over Doncic and slammed it down with a primal scream. It wasn't just a bucket, it was a statement. Then came the look. As he jogged back on defense, Edwards glanced at LeBron. Not with arrogance, but with challenge. A silent message, I'm not waiting for your approval anymore. LeBron nodded once. There was no anger, no trash talk. Just acknowledgement. The kid was real. Later, with the Lakers down 10, Doncic tried to slow the bleeding. He sized up Edwards again, bouncing the ball lazily between his legs. Luka's smirk flickered briefly. He went into his bag, Hesse, spin, step back, but Edwards anticipated it. He stayed chest to chest, then leapt with perfect timing to block Luka's shot out of the air. The crowd lost its mind. On the next play, Ant hit a transition three and screamed to the rafters, "This is MY time." That's when the dynamic changed. No longer was it LeBron's game to control. No longer was it Luka's brilliance dictating the pace. Edwards had taken the keys, and the Timberwolves had found their heartbeat. It wasn't just about buckets anymore. It was about belief. On the Lakers bench, coaches barked adjustments. Assistant coaches pointed to charts, reworking defensive sets. LeBron stood up, clapped his hands, urging his teammates on. He still believed they could crush the uprising. But the uprising was already in full swing. By the end of the third, Edwards had 31 points, and the Wolves were ahead by 14. The crowd was a sea of noise and the Lakers looked confused, rattled, like they hadn't prepared for this version of Edwards. And to be fair, they hadn't. This wasn't the highlight reel dunker or the cheeky media darling. This was a storm in sneakers. A young man who had studied the legends and decided he wasn't content to follow them. He wanted to beat them. Back on the bench, Ant sipped water and looked at the scoreboard. Fourth quarter, he said to no one in particular. Let's end this. The buzzer echoed through the Target Center like a call to arms. The fourth quarter had arrived and with it, the moment of truth. Minnesota held a 14-point lead, but Anthony Edwards knew better than to relax. You didn't bury a team led by LeBron James and Luka Doncic without a fight. They weren't just stars, they were closers. On the Lakers bench, LeBron had taken off the warm-up shirt. He stood, eyes focused, breathing steady. He'd been here 100 times before. Luka, beside him, had that dangerous look in his eyes, the one he wore in Dallas when he dropped 40 without breaking a sweat. The game wasn't over. But neither was Anthony Edwards. As the quarter began, the Timberwolves turned to their leader. Ant caught the inbound and calmly surveyed the defense. The Lakers had switched to a zone, trying to wall off the paint, daring him to settle for jumpers. He didn't. Instead, he called for a screen, split the defenders with lightning speed, and finished at the rim with contact. And won. The crowd exploded. He stared into the stands, chest heaving, and flexed with the energy of a man possessed. He wasn't just scoring, he was daring the game to challenge him. He was feeding off pressure, drinking in every second of the moment. LeBron responded quickly. On the next possession, he backed down a defender and hit a fadeaway jumper from the elbow. Vintage. The bench clapped. Luka followed with a step-back three on the next play. Just like that, the lead was down to 10. The Wolves called timeout. Coach Finch didn't need to say much. Stay poised. Finish the job. But Anthony was already a step ahead. Back on the floor, he looked across the court at the two stars who had shaped the league's narrative for years. Luka had the numbers. LeBron had the rings. But Anthony? Anthony had the moment. He exploded out of the timeout with another drive, drawing a double team. Instead of forcing the shot, he kicked it out to McDaniels for a corner three. Splash. That's what made him different now. He wasn't just a scorer, he was a leader. A rising alpha. The next 5 minutes became a slugfest. LeBron hit threes. Luka dissected the defense with pinpoint passes. The Timberwolves answered every time. And Edwards, he was the metronome keeping everything on beat. With 3 minutes left and the Lakers down by 6, they sent a trap at him at half court. Edwards split it, rose from the free throw line, and floated in a teardrop that kissed the glass and fell through. Then came the dagger. With under 2 minutes to go, Luka launched a desperate three. Mississippi Edwards snatched the rebound and sprinted. Instead of slowing down to drain the clock, he pushed hard. 2 dribbles, crossover, and he launched a deep three in transition. The ball seemed to hang in the air forever. Swish. Timeout Lakers. Anthony Edwards jogged to the bench slowly, jaw set, eyes locked on the opposing sideline. He passed by LeBron, who met his gaze for the first time all night, not as a mentor, not as an idol, but as an equal. Luka looked away. Not out of disrespect, but realization. He'd been in control so many times. But not tonight. Tonight belonged to someone else. As the final seconds ticked away, the Timberwolves bench exploded in celebration. Fans danced in the aisles. Edwards stood at center court, arms raised, soaking in the noise, the lights, the confirmation. He didn't just beat the Lakers. He announced himself to the world. After the game, reporters crowded him. "You looked like you took that Lakers in 5 prediction personally," one said. Anthony laughed. "I did. I heard all of it. I just had to remind everybody, nobody writes my script but me." Another reporter asked about facing legends like LeBron and Luka. Edwards paused, then said quietly, "I respect them. Always. But I don't fear them. I was born for this." That quote would run for days across sports shows and headlines. But it was more than a quote. It was a warning. The morning after the game, headlines flooded every sports network across the country. Edwards outduels LeBron and Luka. Wolves advance. Anthony Edwards, the future is now. LeBron nods, Luka silenced. Ant makes the league listen. Anthony Edwards had done more than just win a playoff series. He had shaken the NBA's narrative. It was no longer about the passing of the torch. It was about someone reaching up and grabbing it with both hands. At just 23 years old, Anthony had forced the basketball world to look at him differently. No longer a highlight machine. No longer the potential superstar. He was here. Now. And everyone knew it. But with attention comes scrutiny. He arrived at the practice facility early that morning, long before cameras and reporters. There was still sweat on the court from the night before, and he could still feel the echo of the crowd in his ears. Chris Finch walked in, coffee in hand. "Could have taken a morning off," the coach said. Ant smirked. "Nah, I'm not done." That was his mentality. One series didn't mean anything unless it led to something bigger. But inside, even Anthony knew that something had shifted. He'd gone head-to-head with LeBron James, the face of the league for 2 decades, and never blinked. He'd outplayed Luka Doncic, who many had declared the best young player in the world. And now they were home, watching him. SportsCenter ran a segment on Edwards' fourth-quarter stats. Pundits debated whether this was the beginning of a new NBA era. Kendrick Perkins said it plainly. "That boy Ant is him. That ain't potential, that's reality. And the league better adjust." But not everyone was praising. One former player questioned whether Ant could sustain it. Another analyst said he benefited from a weak Lakers defense. Others asked if it was a fluke, one hot night at the right time. Anthony didn't care. He never played for applause. In a sit-down interview 2 days later, a reporter asked him if it felt surreal going up against his childhood heroes. Edwards leaned back in his chair. "I mean, yeah. I grew up watching LeBron. Learned a lot from Luka's game too. But I told myself a long time ago, I didn't come here to watch them. I came here to beat them." The interviewer raised an eyebrow. "Even LeBron?" And smiled. "Especially LeBron. I respect him more than anyone. That's why I had to go at him. If you want to be great, you gotta test yourself against the best. And when you get that shot, you don't hesitate. Wasn't trash talk. It was honesty. Earned confidence. Meanwhile, LeBron himself was asked about Edwards in his own postseason press conference. "That kid's special," LeBron said. "He's got that thing you can't teach, fearlessness. Reminds me of, well, me when I came in. Just with a little more fire." Even Luka, usually reserved, praised Anthony. "He's tough, man. You think you've got him figured out and then he hits something crazy on you. It's not just talent, it's will." Back in Minnesota, fans lined up to buy jerseys with Edwards' name. Murals appeared overnight across downtown. He was no longer the Timberwolves' best player, he was the city's heartbeat. But Ant didn't let it go to his head. In the next practice he dove for loose balls. He stayed after for extra shooting drills. When a rookie asked why he was going so hard, he just shrugged. "They gave me respect. Now I gotta earn it again." Because in Anthony's mind, it wasn't about one round. It wasn't about LeBron, or Luka, or proving the analysts wrong. It was about building something that would last. And this was only the beginning. The Lakers had flown back to Los Angeles under the cover of silence. No press conferences. No loud exits. Just long stares out of airplane windows and the heaviness of realization. Their season was over, and Anthony Edwards had ended it. Inside the locker room at Crypto.com Arena, LeBron sat quietly, wrapping his own knees. Luka Doncic leaned back in a chair, headphones around his neck, watching clips of the loss on his phone, frame by frame. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. The message was loud even in the quiet. Someone new had arrived. Legacy is a funny thing in the NBA. It's not just built on stats or titles, it's about moments. LeBron had defined eras with them. Luka had carved his place through jaw-dropping brilliance. But now, Anthony Edwards had created a moment so powerful, it reverberated through every franchise, every player, every young fan who suddenly saw someone new they wanted to be. Back in Minnesota, that impact was already being felt. High school gyms were buzzing. Kids lowered their voices and mimicked Ant's swagger. "Lakers in 5, right?" had become a catchphrase turned into memes, t-shirts, TikToks. And the Timberwolves? They felt it too. Practices had sharper edges. Teammates played harder. Karl Anthony Towns, a veteran of too many rebuilds, finally looked like a man walking with purpose. The organization knew what it had now. A cornerstone. But with glory came responsibility. The next series would not be against a tired, aging Lakers team. It would be against the Denver Nuggets, defending champions, led by the unflappable Nikola Jokic. There would be no media hype over narrative. No viral clips of Shannon Sharpe's predictions. This time, Anthony Edwards would walk into the spotlight as the hunted, not the hunter. And he knew it. "You got the crown now," Naz Reid said to him one day after practice, half joking, half in awe. Ant didn't blink. "Then I better wear it right." But privately the pressure weighed on him. He spent long hours watching film, not just of Denver but of LeBron in his prime. Of Kobe. Of Jordan. He studied not just how they played but how they handled the shift, when people stopped calling them up next and started demanding they win. Greatness, he realized, wasn't about one playoff run. It was about carrying expectations every night, even when you had nothing left. In those quiet hours, he thought often about the moment LeBron had nodded at him during Game 5. It wasn't congratulation. It was confirmation. A torch passed silently. Anthony knew it wasn't official, yet. But it was close. And if he wanted to hold that torch permanently, he had to beat more than narratives. He had to beat champions. His trainer asked him that night why he wasn't resting. Ant simply said, "Legacy doesn't sleep." Meanwhile, sports media had shifted tone. The same voices that had called him flashy and inconsistent were now labeling him the next face of the league. One panel on ESPN debated whether he was the new Jordan. Edwards hated it. He tweeted once simply, "Let me be me." Because for all the comparisons, all the noise, Anthony Edwards wasn't trying to be LeBron. Or Kobe. Or Jordan. He was trying to be the first Ant. Unique. Unbothered. Unrelenting. As the series against Denver approached, reporters asked him what he expected. "Pressure," he said. "And that's cool. I'm pressure-proof." One journalist followed up, You really think you're the best player left in the playoffs? Edwards grinned. Ask the Lakers. He didn't mean it as a shot. He meant it as proof that even the greatest legacies, when confronted with something real, had to yield even for a night. And the echoes of that night still hadn't faded. The Rocky Mountains stood tall on the horizon as the Timberwolves team plane descended into Denver. The altitude was the first thing you felt: thin air, dry lungs, fatigue creeping in faster than usual. But Anthony Edwards wasn't worried about the air. He was coming for the crown. The Nuggets had heard the noise. The Wolves were hot, Ant was unstoppable, and the Lakers had been flattened. But Denver wasn't Los Angeles. They were defending champs. Battle-tested. They had Nikola Jokic, a two-time MVP who played with the patience of a poker player and the footwork of a ballet dancer. Game 1 began with an eerie calm. There were no memes flying beforehand, no outlandish TV predictions. Just cold, focused energy. Edwards walked onto the court with the same fire he'd carried through LA, but with a new awareness. Jokic wasn't a spotlight player, but he killed you with details. Luka played with flair. Jokic played with silence. And it was working. By the second quarter, Jokic had a quiet 12 points, 8 rebounds and 6 assists. He hadn't even broken a sweat. Jamal Murray hit tough shots. Michael Porter Jr. ran wild off screens. Denver looked like a machine. Edwards, meanwhile, struggled to find rhythm. Denver's defenders collapsed on him at every drive, daring his teammates to beat them. The Wolves missed open looks. The pace dragged. The crowd got louder. By the end of the third, Ant had just 14 points. Still, he never flinched. Because losing wasn't new. Getting punched in the mouth wasn't new. What mattered was how you answered. In the fourth quarter, with Minnesota down by 18, the coaching staff considered sitting their starters. Save their energy. Regroup for Game 2. But Edwards stayed in. Not because he thought they could win, because he needed to feel it. The pace, the pressure, the altitude. If he was going to beat Denver, he had to know them inside and out. He needed to bleed first. He ended the game with 22 points, but the Wolves lost by 21. In the post-game conference, the questions came fast. Did Denver expose you? Is this the end of the Ant hype train? Was LA a fluke? Edwards sat forward, elbows on the table, voice calm. Nah. They did what they're supposed to. That's a great team. But I'll adjust. The reporters kept pressing, but Anthony didn't waver. They got me tonight, he said, nodding. Cool. Let's see what happens next time. That phrase, let's see what happens next time, would ignite a firestorm. Denver's players noticed. Fans noticed. Jokic was asked if he felt disrespected. He chuckled. Not at all. He should believe in himself. That's what good players do. Back in the hotel room that night, Edwards watched the game twice. First like a player. Then like a student. Every double team. Every rotation. Every cut that Denver had made. He took mental notes, rewound plays over and over. By 3 a.m. he was still up in the room's gym, shooting jumpers into an empty net. Karl-Anthony Towns walked in half awake. You're insane, bro? Ed smiled. Or locked in. Because this wasn't LA Flash anymore. This was a chess match. A mountain to climb, literally and figuratively. And Edwards loved mountains. The next morning at practice he pulled his team aside. They're champions. Respect that. But stop treating them like gods. They bleed too. His voice had changed. Not louder, firmer. His teammates listened. Not because of the stat sheet but because of the tone. The edge. The belief. Later that night he posted a single image on social media. A mountain peak with no caption. The message was clear. This isn't over. The second game in Denver was different from the first. The Nuggets came out with the same intensity, but the Timberwolves showed a new kind of grit. Anthony Edwards led the charge, his eyes sharper, his moves more calculated. The crowd at Ball Arena was roaring, but Anthony didn't hear the noise. He only heard the thud of his sneakers on the court and the rhythm of the game unfolding before him. The game began with a fast pace. Edwards attacked the rim aggressively, drawing fouls and making defenders pay. His confidence was growing with every possession. He wasn't just playing against Denver. He was playing against doubt, against the whispers that his success was a fluke. LeBron's words echoed in his mind, fearlessness. That was his edge. Nikola Jokic, calm and composed as always, kept matching Edwards point for point. The two giants in the paint moved like chess pieces, testing each other's defenses. Jamal Murray struck from the perimeter, but Edwards responded with a smooth three-pointer over Michael Porter Jr. The momentum shifted. In the third quarter, Edwards executed a perfect pick-and-roll with Towns, slicing through Denver's defense for a thunderous dunk that sent shockwaves through the arena. The Nuggets called timeout. On the sidelines, Coach Finch urged his team to keep the pressure. The Wolves fought every inch, every rebound, every second. With 5 minutes left, the score was tied. The fourth quarter became a battle of wills. Edwards and Jokic traded baskets relentlessly. Each possession felt like a war zone. Then came the moment. With under 2 minutes remaining, Edwards dribbled past half court. Jokic positioned himself defensively, anticipating the drive. Edwards hesitated, then pulled up for a step-back three. Swish. The crowd erupted. Denver's lead was gone. LeBron and Luka watched from their respective homes, both feeling the tremors of a new king emerging. The game ended with the Wolves eking out a narrow victory. After the buzzer, Edwards collapsed on the floor, exhausted but triumphant. His teammates swarmed him. The narrative was changing. He was no longer just the young challenger, he was becoming a true contender. The win in Denver was a statement, but the series was far from over. Back in Minnesota, the Timberwolves faced their toughest challenge yet, keeping the momentum alive under the unforgiving glare of home court expectations. Fans packed the Target Center, the atmosphere electric. Every pass, every shot was amplified, every mistake magnified. Anthony Edwards felt the weight. The city's hopes. The league's watchful eyes. The pressure wasn't just physical, it was mental, relentless. Practice that morning was intense. Coach Finch pushed harder. Teammates fought for every rebound and contested every shot like their lives depended on it. But Anthony struggled with the noise inside his own head. He'd spent years battling self-doubt, quiet moments where he wondered if the hype would fade, if the spotlight would burn too bright. Now those fears whispered louder than ever. After a tough shooting drill, Edwards sat alone on the court, sweat dripping, heartbeat pounding. His phone buzzed, a message from LeBron. Stay locked in. Trust the process. You've got this. It was enough to steady him. The game started tense. Denver's defense was suffocating. They knew what to expect. Every move from Edwards was met with resistance. Midway through the second quarter, Edwards missed a wide-open jumper. The boos began. But instead of shrinking, he smiled. He drove baseline, drawing two defenders, then kicked the ball to a teammate who hit a three. The crowd roared back. By halftime, the Timberwolves trailed by 4, but Edwards had 18 points and 5 assists. In the locker room, Finch reminded the team, "Pressure reveals character. What's yours?" Edwards stood up, voice calm but fierce. "We don't fold. We fight." The second half was a battle. Edwards took more risks, pulling defenders, creating plays, pushing the pace. With a minute left, down by 2, he stole the ball, sprinted the length of the court and nailed a pull-up jumper. Silence. Then eruption. The Timberwolves won by 1. Afterward, Edwards told reporters, "Pressure isn't a problem. It's a privilege. It means people believe in you." That night, Anthony wasn't just a player, he was a leader forged in fire. The victory at home gave the Timberwolves momentum, but Anthony Edwards knew the hardest part was still ahead. The series against Denver was now tied, but the pressure to close it out mounted. Everywhere he went, whispers followed. Can he do it again? Is he ready to carry a team all the way? Is this just a hot streak or the birth of a legend? Anthony felt those eyes, but he tried to shut them out. Still, the weight of expectation settled on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. Back at the practice facility, the whispers felt louder. Reporters had started to surround him, asking about legacy and future MVP talks. Fans approached for autographs with hopeful eyes. It was intoxicating and exhausting. One afternoon, after a grueling practice, Edwards sat in the locker room, head in his hands. Karl-Anthony Towns noticed and sat beside him. "Don't let it get to you," Towns said quietly. "You're bigger than all that." Edwards nodded but didn't speak. Inside, the pressure wasn't just from outside, it was self-imposed. The fear of failure, the need to prove he belonged. That night, he texted his family, "Feeling the weight, but I'm not backing down." His mother replied, "We believe in you always. Breathe. One step at a time." The next day, Edwards arrived at practice with a renewed sense of purpose. Coach Finch pulled the team together. "This is more than basketball now," Finch said. "This is about proving what you're made of." Edwards locked eyes with his teammates. "Let's finish what we started." Game 5 was a clash of wills. The intensity was palpable. Every possession felt like a battle, every basket hard-earned. Edwards played with a mix of fire and focus. He didn't just score. He orchestrated plays, defended aggressively, and inspired his team. Late in the fourth quarter, with seconds ticking away and the game tied, Edwards took the ball, drove through a wall of defenders, and dished a no-look pass to Towns for the winning layup. The arena exploded. After the game, a reporter asked, "How do you handle all this pressure?" Edwards smiled, sweat dripping, eyes shining. "Pressure is the weight that lifts you higher. I'm ready to fly." The Timberwolves were now one win away from the Western Conference Finals. The series had become a saga of resilience, grit, and the undeniable rise of Anthony Edwards. The basketball world had shifted its gaze, no longer just watching. Now they were witnessing history in the making. In the locker room before Game 6, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. The team knew the stakes. They also knew the journey wasn't just about wins or losses, it was about legacy. Edwards stood before his teammates, calm but commanding. "This is our moment," he said. "We've fought hard. We've earned this. But one more step. One more fight. Let's show the world who we are." The crowd inside Target Center was deafening as the game tipped off. Every pass, every play was met with thunderous cheers. Edwards was electric, driving with precision and attacking with a newfound confidence. Nikola Jokic matched his intensity, and the battle turned into a gripping back-and-forth duel. Each possession was a test of skill, will, and heart. With 2 minutes left and the game tied, Edwards took control. He hit a clutch three-pointer, then forced a turnover on defense. The momentum swung in Minnesota's favor. In the final seconds, Edwards sealed the game with a step-back jumper over Jokic, sending the crowd into a frenzy. As the buzzer sounded, Edwards fell to his knees, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the moment. His teammates lifted him up, chanting his name. In post-game interviews, Edwards was humble but resolute. "This is just the beginning," he said. "We're not here to make noise, we're here to build a dynasty." LeBron James, watching the game from afar, sent a congratulatory message to Anthony. "You earned it, kid. Keep grinding." As the Timberwolves prepared for the Western Conference Finals, the narrative had shifted completely. Anthony Edwards was no longer just a promising star. He was the face of a new era. An era where legends were challenged, legacies redefined, and a new king was crowned. The plane ride to California was quiet, but the energy in the Timberwolves cabin was charged. For the first time in franchise history, they were headed to the Western Conference Finals with a true belief they could win it all. Not hope. Not surprise. Belief. Anthony Edwards sat by the window, headphones on, staring out at the clouds below. He wasn't celebrating. He wasn't smiling. He was locked in. He knew what came next: the Golden State Warriors. Stephen Curry. Klay Thompson. Draymond Green. Rings, banners, and a decade of dominance. They weren't a team, they were a dynasty. And Ant loved it. "This is what I want," he told Coach Finch during the flight. "I don't want easy." Game 1 in San Francisco felt like entering sacred territory. The Chase Center was roaring before tip-off. Warriors fans were loud, confident. They'd seen challengers before. None had dethroned them easily. But the Timberwolves weren't here to kneel. The game started with Curry dancing behind screens, draining impossible shots. The Warriors moved the ball like a symphony. Beautiful chaos. Minnesota trailed by 12 in the first quarter. Edwards wasn't fazed. He turned up the pressure. He attacked mismatches, absorbed contact and drew fouls. He fed Towns in the post, hit McDaniels on cuts, and then started hitting step-backs with Curry guarding him. Midway through the third, the Wolves tied the game. The arena fell into a tense silence. Steph came alive again in the fourth, hitting back-to-back threes. But every time the Warriors surged, Edwards answered. With 30 seconds left and the game tied, the Wolves had the ball. The crowd stood. Ant waved off the screen. One-on-one. Curry guarded him tight. He dribbled once, twice, stepped back and pulled. Swish. Pull. Ruthless. Silent. The Wolves took game one. Reporters mobbed him post-game. You just beat the Warriors on their floor. Do you feel like the league's best player now? Anthony paused, looked directly into the camera and said, Nah, I'm just getting started. The throne isn't given. I'm here to take it. After the stunning Game 1 victory in San Francisco, the sports world erupted. Talk shows, podcasts, and Twitter timelines were ablaze. Anthony Edwards just cooked Curry on his own court. This ain't the LeBron era. It's Ant's league now. Wolves in 6? Don't be surprised. But for Edwards, the headlines didn't matter. He turned off notifications. He muted every app. No distractions. He knew what happened when people started believing their own hype. He'd seen stars get gassed up and flame out. He wasn't going to be one of them. Game 2 was a war. The Warriors came out with fury. Draymond barked instructions. Curry ran a masterclass in off-ball movement, and Klay lit up the first quarter with vintage threes. Golden State wasn't just defending their home court, they were defending their legacy. Edwards knew it the moment he stepped on the floor. Every pass he threw was met with a hand in the lane. Every drive was met with contact. Every shot had a contest. By halftime he had only 10 points and the Wolves were down by 15. The crowd at Chase Center was deafening, and the internet had already flipped. Warriors remind everyone who runs the West. Ant looks human again. But in the locker room, Edwards sat in silence. He stared at the stat sheet. Not out of frustration, but calculation. Finch entered the room and gave a short speech about poise. He ended with, "Storm's coming. What do we do?" Anthony stood, voice low and clear, "We lean into it." The second half started and something clicked. Edwards didn't force. He adapted. He shifted from scorer to playmaker. He drew doubles and dished to open shooters. He grabbed boards and pushed the pace himself. Slowly the lead shrank. Then came the fourth. Down by 5 with 3 minutes left, the Wolves locked in defensively. Edwards hit a tough runner. Next possession he stripped Curry clean, then fed a cutting Towns for the dunk. Tie game. The next minute chaos. Curry hit a bomb. Edwards answered with a hard foul line pull-up. With 18 seconds left, Warriors ball, up by 1. Curry tried to ice it. He dribbled, shifted, stepped back, then launched. Edwards was there. Block. McDaniels secured the rebound. Timeout. Final play. 5 seconds. Wolves down 1. Everyone expected Ant to take the shot. But off the inbounds he drew 2 defenders, and kicked it to Mike Conley. Corner 3. Bang. Wolves win. Pandemonium. Back in the tunnel, Finch grabbed Anthony by the shoulders and said, "That's what leaders do." Reporters begged for sound bites. Edwards kept it short. "The noise can wait. We're not done yet." In private though, he allowed himself a quiet smile. He hadn't just won another game. He had silenced a dynasty. With the Timberwolves up 2-0, the series shifted back to Minnesota. The city was vibrating with belief. For a franchise that had lived in the shadows for decades, this was something more than playoff basketball. It was a movement. Anthony Edwards, however, wasn't smiling. He walked into Game 3 with a quiet seriousness, headphones in, hoodie up. He wasn't treating this like a celebration. He was treating it like a trap. Because he knew what killers did when they were cornered. And Golden State? They were killers. The Warriors came out in Game 3 like wounded lions. Steph was surgical. Floaters, mid-range, full-speed stop and pops. Klay moved without the ball like a phantom, and Draymond anchored a defense that suffocated the Wolves' rhythm. For the first time in weeks, Edwards looked unsure. He forced shots. Missed open looks. Turned it over. Golden State smelled blood. By the fourth quarter, the Wolves were down 22, and the building had gone silent. Not angry. Not panicked. Just stunned. Edwards sat on the bench with his towel over his head, staring at the floor. But inside, fire. After the game, the press circled like sharks. Anthony, were you outplayed? Has your confidence changed? He didn't bite. They did what champions do. I'm watching tape tonight. I'll be better. And he meant it. He stayed at the practice facility until 3 a.m., watching film with one of the assistant coaches, breaking down every missed read, every trap, every careless pass. I'm not just trying to be great, he muttered between clips. I'm trying to be undeniable. Game 4 was the answer. He came out with ice in his veins. No forced heroics. Just surgical basketball. He attacked mismatches. Controlled tempo. Trusted his teammates. And then, when it mattered, he turned the switch. Late in the third quarter, with the Wolves up 6, Edwards went on a personal 10-0 run, 3 tough buckets, a steal and a coast-to-coast slam that sent the Target Center into a frenzy. The Wolves took Game 4 by 14. Afterward, Steph Curry approached him at half court. You got the juice, Steph said. Keep going. That moment meant more to Anthony than he let on. Because being a star was one thing. But when legends start calling you one of them, that's when the crown starts to tilt. That night, Edwards posted a single image, a chessboard with the caption, "Not playing checkers."